Welcome back. We now have a good idea of how a motor works. In this video, we will understand what a motor controller actually does. Motors are used in a lot of different applications. In a robotic application, you might want to control the position of the arm, or in the case of washing machines, you would want to have a complete control over the speed of the motor. Whereas in electric vehicles, you want fine control over the torque of the motor to accelerate or slow down the vehicle. The other way to think about it is, you want to either control theta, d theta by dt, or d square theta by dt square. Let us first look at the torque control. We will get back to the speed and position control. Remember, in the first video we concluded that the force is proportional to the current. This came from the Lorentz law, and for rotational systems, force is equivalent to torque. So we can understand that more the current, the higher might be the torque. This is the exact equation for the torque, and we will derive it in the next video, but what we can understand is, if I can control the amount of current flowing in the windings, I can control the torque of the motor. Also in the last video, we saw that the frequency of currents will give us the speed of the motor. The term IP in this equation is what you would want to control the torque. Let us take an example of an electric vehicle. I have a battery pack which is a DC source, but I need to feed 3-phase sinusoidal currents to the motor. If we can convert this DC power source into a 3-phase AC supply, then we can feed it to the motor. This is exactly what an inverter does. The inverter is not the subject of discussion today, but we will definitely study it as it is the core of a motor controller. So if I can now control the currents in some way, then we can control the torque. This is exactly where field-oriented control will help us. There are other techniques as well to control the motor, but we might talk about them at a later stage maybe. But how do we control the current? I have the current that I want to supply. You can imagine this signal coming from the accelerator pedal in a car. More the pedal is pressed, higher the torque you want, which implies the desired current is more. I can measure the current in the windings with the help of a current sensor. I will find the error between the two. The current at the start will be 0, so the error will be positive. We can start pushing current and reduce the error if we increase the voltage output from the inverter. So let us say we have a control block which converts this error to a voltage signal. This voltage signal, we will feed it to the inverter, and the inverter will produce the exact same voltage, and then we can feed that voltage to the motor. In control systems language, we can denote the inverter and the motor as a system or plant. The aim of this control is to make the error 0 so that the feedback current matches with the desired current. Now we will again read the currents, find the new error, change the voltage so that the error moves towards 0. We will keep repeating this process, and what will happen is the error will eventually go to 0. This is an example of a closed loop control system. And all this happens in a microcontroller. So what does this microcontroller do? I am sort of repeating this again so that you remember it. It will read values of currents from the current sensor, and it will read the value from the accelerator pedal so that it can set the reference current. It will find the error between the reference and feedback, send this error to the control block to generate a voltage signal and send it to the inverter. And then it will keep repeating this process. All this happens as an interrupt in a microcontroller. An interrupt is a way of scheduling tasks at a specific interval. In this case, the tasks are steps 1, 2, and 3. The most common control block used is a PID controller. You can also use non-linear control methods. You can use just a feed forward, but the most common one is PID. It stands for proportional integral derivative. Most of us must have heard about this, but we will cover what is a PID controller in detail in a later video. But if you are eager to learn now, check out the videos of Brian, and I'll put a link in the description. Whatever we just discussed is what a motor controller looks like in a nutshell. But we still need to get into the details. We have 3 currents that we want to control. So we will need 3 different control loops that all work together. It means we have 3 feedback currents, 3 reference currents, and 3 PI controllers, and each controller will generate its own voltage signal VA, VB, and VC. Let us bring our space vectors back to simplify things. We have seen earlier that we can represent three phases 120 degrees apart in space. Also, we can denote the sinusoidal currents as vectors. But why do we need three vectors to represent 2D space? I'm sure we can do it with only two reference axes. Let us call them alpha and beta. What I'm suggesting is, let us convert our three-phase currents IA, IB and IC into two, I alpha and I beta. We just need to take the projection of these currents in the alpha and beta axis to get this formula. We can also represent this same equation in the matrix form. This is called Clarke Transformation. Let us plot some waveforms to see what Clarke Transformation does. I have three sine waves 120 degrees apart. Note that A is leading B by 120 degrees. I have already written down the equations for alpha and beta. Alpha is exactly equal to A, which should make sense, as alpha and A represent the same axis. Beta is 90 degrees phase shifted, as alpha and beta axes are at 90 degrees. Also observe that alpha is leading beta. This convention is very important and all further derivations are done using this convention. But why are we doing all this and how does this help us? What we can do is, we can convert our three-phase feedback currents into I alpha and I beta. Now we need only two control systems to control three currents. So, we have reduced the task that the microcontroller needs to do. You must have also noticed this inverse Clarke block. This does the inverse task of converting alpha-beta signals into ABC signals, which we can feed it to the inverter. It does not matter whether that signal is a current or voltage. You can apply Clarke transform on any signal to convert it from three-phase to two-phase and back to three phases. What we have essentially done is reduce the three-axis system to the two-axis system and reduced our task by 33%. But that's not the only advantage. Remember that we have a rotor that keeps rotating, so is the rotor flux. Like in the last video, we can find the net current vector and remember that currents produce MMF. Net current vector is also the direction of the net MMF. So these currents are also representing the stator flux. We have two vectors, stator flux vector and the rotor flux vector. The maximum torque is produced when they are at 90 degrees with respect to each other. Why so? This is easy to understand. Take two magnets. If they are already aligned with each other, there will be no torque. But when one magnet is perpendicular to the other, we get maximum torque. That is exactly what we have to do. If we can orient the net current vector perpendicular to the rotor flux, then we can get maximum torque. Or in other words, I have to produce a sinusoidal current vector which is 90 degrees ahead of rotor flux. Faster the rotor rotates, faster the current vector should also rotate or the frequency of currents should also increase. These AC quantities are difficult to control compared to DC ones. Let us understand this through a merry-go-round example. Consider a merry-go-round and you have a camera with you. Your task is to keep tracking your child on one of the horses. You see, it is a very hard job. The more the speed of merry-go-round or higher the frequency of rotation, tougher it is. But what if you sit or in this case stand on one of the horses behind your child? Isn't it much easier to track? What you have effectively done is changed your stationary reference frame to the rotating reference frame. Let us see how we can use this to our advantage. Let's change our frame of axis and sit on the rotor itself. We will call our new reference axis as the dq axis. D axis is parallel to rotor flux, q axis is perpendicular to the rotor flux. Remember that the maximum torque is produced when the current vector is perpendicular to rotor flux. So I have one component of current, D axis current, that produces no torque, and one component which is perpendicular to the rotor flux and that produces all the torque. We can easily convert I alpha beta into I dq with this transformation. To derive this, all you have to do is find the component of alpha and beta on the D and Q axis. This is called the Park transformation. Now, remember that this reference frame is rotating. If you see from outside, you will see rotating vectors. But if you see from DQ reference frame which is rotating, the D-axis and Q-axis current values seem to be constant. They are DC quantities. We have converted AC signals into DC. Let us go back to Desmos. The equations for Park transform are already written. I have also added the ramp function, which tells us what is theta. It keeps repeating from 0 to 2 pi and that completes one full cycle. Let us plot D-axis current. You can see that it is 0 shown in blue color. The Q-axis current is -1. Both of these are DC quantities. You can also observe that the Q-axis current is the magnitude of the sine wave. We will get back to it later. Let's look at a control system now. We wanted to control 3-phase sinusoidal currents, but we can convert these currents into 2-phase DC quantities D and Q. We find the error and feed it to the PID controller. The nice thing about this controller is that it deals with only DC quantities. The output of the controller is VD and VQ, which we convert back to VABC and then feed it to the motor. The Q-axis current controls the torque of the motor and the D-axis current controls the flux because it is parallel to the rotor flux. So for controlling torque, all you have to do is set the D-axis reference current to 0 and Q-axis reference current to some value, for example 10 amps. Also observe that to convert alpha beta quantities to DQ quantity, we need to know the rotor angle. This angle is obtained by a position sensor placed in the motor. But what are these sensors? At this point in time, you must have a lot of questions and let's see what things we have not answered. What is a position sensor or what are encoders and resolvers? We have only covered torque control. What about speed and position control? How does this inverter even work? What is a PID controller and how do we tune it? How do we sense current? What are different options available? How to choose a microcontroller? We will answer these questions and the rest of your doubts one at a time. See you next time.